Yesterday, we did a segment on Sam Harris in which he called out Trump supporters. We gave him credit there. But here's something that's really bad, and it's going to be really tough to stomach because this is over 5 minutes. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was painful to listen to because we'll get through it. But check it out. It's going to be Sam Harris talking about why he supported Hillary Clinton. He voted for Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. Check it out.
Many of you are asking me, why on earth am I voting or planning to vote for Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders? Well, it's not for any deep conviction about Clinton's integrity or honesty. I share the common perception of her as a political opportunist. I think she really wants to be president. I don't doubt that she also wants to live in a nice world and help people, but if you get one thing from the Clintons, it is their desire to be in power and on the top of the mountain. And there is a basic insincerity there. There's a endless appetite for political calculation in place of obvious candor. And it is definitely grating, and it doesn't inspire trust. If you ever heard her trying not to admit that she had changed her mind about gay marriage, in an interview with Terry Gross on Fresh Air, I think this happened about 2 years ago, you'll see everything that's wrong with her approach to communicating the workings of her own mind. It's the most excruciating 5 minutes of radio I can remember hearing, where she's becoming more and more defensive, more and more irate that Terry would suggest that she had changed her mind on this topic, whereas she had actually changed her mind on the topic. It's just unbelievable. But she's changed her mind to the right position on that topic. And I think she's, despite the fact that she will say that ISIS has nothing to do with Islam and that Islam is a religion of peace, and she will sound like a fairly delusional person when talking about the conflict in the Middle East, I'm reasonably confident that she understands what is actually going on there and that she's one of the grown-ups who will be able to respond to crises there in an intelligent way. I imagine she will continue Obama's policies to some significant degree. I can't claim to know that about Bernie Sanders. I don't think he has thought about foreign policy very much. He certainly hasn't said much about it. The little he has said makes me worry that he's been somewhat infected by Noam Chomsky's worldview, which I think is the moral black hole swallowing everything on the left side of the political spectrum. So I don't actually know whether we can trust Sanders to be wise on what I consider the most crucial question of foreign policy, which is our fight against global jihadism. And there are many other questions where I would expect Hillary to be far more seasoned and smarter, frankly, on foreign policy, whether it's with Russia or China or any other hard case. I agree that the influence of money in politics and wealth inequality, these are huge issues that we have to get our hands around. I suspect that the difference between Clinton and Sanders on those topics is not so much a matter of what they want to accomplish, but I think Sanders is making promises he can't possibly keep there. I mean, he's clearly an idealist, and his idealism will be smashed if he was ever in office having to deal with Congress. So I think these are empty promises, albeit revolutionary ones, that he's making on those topics. But most important, far more important than anything I have just said, is the fact that I think Sanders cannot get elected in the general election. Now, I know this will raise the ire of all of his fans who are aware of national polls where he's beating Ted Cruz, for instance, and Hillary isn't. But Sanders has not been hammered for the better part of a year by the Republicans because he's not been a plausible candidate until now. If he were the Democratic nominee, a billion-dollar apparatus on the Republican side would do nothing but emphasize his identity as a socialist, right? There is no way this country is electing somebody who has to nuance the term socialism in a general election. It's worse than being an atheist at this moment. It's not the only strike against him, but I think it's a devastating one. So I think nominating Sanders would be to virtually guarantee a Republican victory in a year where the Republican candidates are both less sane and less competent than usual. There's just no reason for the Democrats to lose this election. And I think it would be terrible if they did. I think the prospect of having Cruz or Trump as president is an extraordinarily scary one for different reasons in each case. But I think the only grown-up in sight here is Clinton. And that doesn't mean I don't have great reservations about her. But I think she's smart and competent and knows how to compromise so as to get some things done in government. And I certainly can't say that about Sanders across the board. So, take that as a tepid endorsement of necessity for Clinton. But that's why I've said what I've said about Hillary versus Bernie.
So Sam, what you can tell is he's essentially fallen under this spell of, sort of the kind of nightmare fuel type of thing now, where it's like, oh yeah, let's just have people who have been, experts supposedly, so-called experts who have just been doing what they've been doing for a long time. Let's not really care that much about whether they've, kept their record, what their voting even is, what they care about. That's not really it. It's more like experience to the point where, which this doesn't even apply here, obviously, but experience because, they're educated on the topic, so it's cool. No, that's not how this shit goes, okay? That's not how this shit goes at all. When you're talking about political office, you need somebody who believes in the things that you believe, not just has had experience or is, whatever, grappled to be able to do it. But here's the amazing thing, and this is the problem, okay? You get this sort of feeling that exudes from Sam Harris, which is that he really doesn't know what he's talking about. And I hate to say it, but in this area, he's just uneducated. I mean, it's almost undebatable because he said there that Bernie Sanders doesn't know much about foreign policy. So let's get this straight, all right? Bernie Sanders has been the longest serving independent congressman in the game, okay? He's in the House. Now he's in the Senate. He's rerunning for the Senate. If you go back, if we had listened to Bernie Sanders' foreign policy, this entire quagmire wouldn't exist that we're in right now. Because if you go back and look at what his vote was on the Iraq War, in fact, listen to his speech. It was almost prophetic. It really was, okay? Because not only was his vote correct in which he voted no, but everything he laid out, I shit you not, it was virtually like Bernie was just Nostradamus. It was like, it's unbelievable. Because he was like, what do we do once we what do we do once we replace the government in Iraq? You can't just go in, topple it, and be like, oh, everything's, real good, and it's puppies and rainbows and all this stuff, and how many Americans are going to die, how many Iraqi civilians are going to die, how much it's going to cost. Please, go watch it. It's amazing. It really is amazing, because his vote was correct, what he said was correct. This dude has been a politician for a long time, and when you go back and look at his record, he easily has the best foreign policy record there is. Now, on Israel-Palestine, he's been sort of pro-Israeli a little bit. He's kind of flip-floppy on that issue, but Sam Harris would love that. I mean, I thought he would have loved that, that he was sort of pro-Israeli. So the idea that Bernie Sanders doesn't know anything about foreign policy is asinine, and it just doesn't deal with the facts. And I just don't think Sam Harris is educated. Like, I think if you asked him, what was Bernie's vote for the Iraq War, I don't think he'd be able to tell you. Maybe he'd be able to deduce it on the spot. You can ask him whether he was in the House or the Senate. I don't know. But I just really highly doubt it, because he doesn't show that, he knows what the fuck is going on. Now, another one of his things was, why did he throw in the hate for, like, Noam Chomsky? Like, what is this hate boner that Sam has for Noam Chomsky? Because when he threw that in, I cringed when I heard that, because I was like, dude, okay, you clearly have this kind of, I don't know how to say it, I want to say like a scar or like something like that, because nobody does that. Like, why did you just randomly throw that in to just shit on Noam Chomsky? And it was just super, it was kind of random and uncalled for. I mean, you could have just said that Bernie just was what his foreign policy was. And to be fair, another thing is, Sam doesn't say anything about Bernie Sanders' foreign policy positions. If you listen to the whole thing, he doesn't see a single thing of what Bernie Sanders stands for. So his entire position on whether or not he's supporting Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton is quite literally uninformed, because You can't just have no positions on foreign policy as a senator. You have to vote. You can't have no foreign policy positions as a congressional member in the House. You have to vote. So look back at their voting record. Look at what they've said when they vote. And those exist, as I just gave you an example of with the Iraq War. So it's clear. I hate to say this because Sam's a really smart guy, but he's just uneducated on the topic, and that's the truth. Now, is a common talking point of empty promises coming from Bernie, but the truth is, here's one of the things that I always found to be really stupid. One of them being that, oh, somehow Bernie Sanders will get less done as president than Hillary Clinton, who is easily the most hated Democrat out of any possible person, right? They hate Hillary Clinton. I think he would agree with that, right? She's easily the most hated Democrat by Republicans. So how on planet Earth is the most hated Democrat going to get more done than Bernie Sanders? It doesn't make any sense. But the thing is if you come to the table with a compromised position of let's hold hands, you're not going to get shit done, just like Obama did. But if you come to the table saying I want Medicare for all, and maybe you're going to end up with the public option, maybe you're going to end up with different things that are like that, maybe you end up with Medicaid expansion or something like that, further expansion. So that's a dumb argument as a whole. But Bernie Sanders losing in the general election, he didn't really have any facts on his side. He just kind of made up conjecture, like, oh, this apparatus. Dude, the American populace, when you actually ask them about the issues, is massively left-wing. Let's keep it real. We know the statistics, okay? You can go look them up there. On the issues, on the actual issues, it's getting to the point now where there are certain income groups. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like, I want to say like $30,000 a year making Republicans. Almost a majority of that group thinks that the federal government should ensure that everyone has health care. That is insane. And if you think that person who believes in that is not electable, you're just being dumb. I don't know what else to say. That's stupid. But populism works. And unlike Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders is actually a populist, because Donald Trump was a fake populist. He didn't give a fuck about the people. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, he does. And so he would have won. And this kind of stuff is just, it's poor analysis on Sam's part, and I'm disappointed because I would have expected more from someone who's as much of an intellectual as he is. And the compromises, again, it's this stupid repeat of Obama where you just do this hand-holding nonsense that doesn't get anything done. Bernie Sanders would have been able to get far more done through his presidency. And again, I just want to say that this whole thing that you just listened to, it was hard for me to listen to because he ended up being just so wrong. It's not even funny how wrong he was. Think about it like this, man. I was actually just talking to my friend about this. I was like, you have any idea how many states a Democrat has to drop to actually lose an election? Because it's a lot, man. You really got to drop Ohio, Florida. You got to drop other states. And you have to drop all the Rust Belt states to lose. Think about all of the states that it took for Hillary Clinton to lose. All she really had to do was secure either Ohio or Florida, and then just keep your own blue wall states. Like what is that? So not only did he win the swing contested ones, but he picked up random ones that are supposed to be the blue wall, like Wisconsin and Michigan. And so it's really tough for a Democrat to lose an election. And when they do, they should be just straight banished from running because they're so bad. The idea that Bernie Sanders wouldn't have won votes in the Rust Belt, all Bernie Sanders will have to do is win the Rust Belt. That's it. Because California's going to him. All those other states are going to go to him. So what you really need the swings to come through. I'm sure one of them would have. And Ohio probably, they've also got obviously a lot of factory jobs, etc., etc. I doubt Florida would just because they're, weird people there. But you're talking about losing. As long as you don't lose the Rust Belt, you're fine. Okay? As long as you don't lose the Rust Belt, you're fine. And Bernie Sanders would not have lost the Rust Belt. I repeat. Because he was a protectionist, and that directly affects the people in the Rust Belt. So, Sam, you're a smart dude, but dude, on this specific issue, you're just wrong, man. I'm sorry.